we'll probably get started. So, who am I? I'm Neil Cuthbertson. I've been at Carter Murray for almost 4 years now. I've been recruiting marketing, digital and communications professionals for the last 9 years or so. And I'll let Katie introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Moon. I am one of the global customer success managers at LinkedIn. I've been working at LinkedIn for nearly 6 years with our global staffing clients. We partner with the SR Group and working obviously today with Carter Murray. And yeah, really good to be here. My background is, before coming to LinkedIn, I worked for nearly 15 years within recruitment. So hopefully we'll be able to add some value to your searches today.
Thank you, Katie. So I think in terms of why we're doing this, and just running through a bit of an agenda for today's webinar. Why are we doing this? Well, obviously, given what's happening in the wider market, I guess there's never really been a more pertinent time for candidates to ensure that their LinkedIn profile is optimized. So whether you're an active candidate, very much looking for your next role, or more of a passive candidate who just wants to keep ahead of their curve, obviously now is a great time to do that. Who are we targeting? So very much this webinar is very much geared towards marketing, digital and communications professionals. However, actually the information can be used in other areas as well. The benefits for us from today is really just ensuring that you guys are coming up in relevant searches, whether that's by us as a recruitment agency, other recruitment agencies, or internal recruiters, or indeed hiring managers as they are searching the platform. Then what we'll do is we'll go through a LinkedIn overview from Katie in terms of the platform. I guess I'll give a bit of a sort of a recruiter's eye view through what we look for and search for, etc. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&As at the end. We'll try and get through as many questions as we can. Obviously, if there is others that we don't get through, what we're going to do after the webinar is send out a bit of a takeaway with some pertinent slides and some information. And again, if there's any Q&As that we don't get around to answering today, we can get them answered in there, hopefully. So without anything further, I'll pass over to Katie in terms of her LinkedIn overview.
Thank you very much. Hold on. There we go. So how does LinkedIn create value for you? First of all, I'd just like to, I think it always helps to understand what LinkedIn's vision and mission is. And before we actually delve into kind of your profiles and what your profile says about you. So LinkedIn, our vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. We define our dream as a company is what drives us every day at LinkedIn. And this may have been heard before, but this is something that is talked about and is the true north of our business. Sorry, the slides are a bit slow coming through. So going on to our vision, sorry, the slides are delayed. We define mission as our overarching objective. It's something that's measurable and ideally inspirational. And this is how we connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. So this is kind of what we're all about as a company, and how we look at this, or how we measure what we're doing and our kind of growth, I guess, is by looking at our LinkedIn's economic graph. This is a digital representation of the global economy. And that's broken down as the following. So we have at the moment over 690 million members worldwide. That's growing, I think, since I've been at LinkedIn over the 6 years I've been here, it's consistently been growing for about 2 members per second, which is huge when you think about it. So over nearly 700 million members, we have 50 million companies, over 50 million companies represented on LinkedIn. The groups, there are over nearly 3 million groups, I think, on LinkedIn, which includes industry and interests communities, companies, university, alumni groups, professional associations, etc. So everything is there represented as this economic graph. We have over 90,000 schools and educational institutions represented, and of course your skills are all represented on LinkedIn. Now this is just giving you an overview on what we're doing, what we're building, and how we're measuring. And I guess it's just to give you a bit of an idea on kind of where we're going as a platform. And I think that's always quite nice to understand. What we're going to go into now in a bit more detail, and what we're going to focus the rest of the session on, is your profile and your story. Before I do that, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that we've launched recently during COVID. And they're things that you'll probably see. We haven't got this going through the rest of our slides, but it's something that's so new that I just wanted to highlight it to you today. That if you are open to work, there's 2 ways of doing it. And you really need to update your profiles with this. So number 1 is, if you don't want anybody else to know that you're open to work, but you do want recruiters to know. And when I say recruiters, I mean people like the recruiters at Carter Murray who have a recruiter license. They've invested in one of our products that is the product that recruiters use to find the best people for the right jobs at the right time. It's a very sophisticated product, and that's something that Neil's going to talk to you a bit more about, because it's going to help you to identify what you need on your profile so that recruiters can find you. But the first thing you need to do as a takeaway today is, if you are open to new opportunities, you need to flag that on your profile. Now, I think there's a link that the guys are going to send around after this call that will tell you how to do it. What I've got here on the screen is just a quick shot of I put my open to work on this morning privately, so it's only on there so that recruiters like the guys at Carter Murray will be able to see that I'm open to new opportunities. And you'll see at the bottom of the screen it says only recruiters. So this is what I've done. I've this morning, for this sake, is I've flagged that I'm open to work, so any recruiters will be able to search on me now, but the rest of my network won't see that. If I wanted the rest of my network to see that, as well as recruiters, I can do the second option, which is this first screen grab here, and you'll get this little green banner which says open to work. And this is a brand new thing. So the open to opportunities has been going for a while. We've rebranded it as open to work, and we've now got this green kind of circle around your profile so that people can quickly see on your profile if you are, open to work, and you're kind of quite open about that. So I just wanted to flag that. The other thing that we've updated, I don't have a screen grab on, but for anyone that has a name that everyone mispronounces, you'll be pleased to know that finally we have something in place where you can record your name. So next to where your name is on LinkedIn, next to here, there'll be a little option to record your name. And that will mean that recruiters can first of all listen to that. They see quite clearly that they've got a little recording of it, and they then can say your name properly. And this is one of the things we're doing around kind of inclusion and belonging. It's something that we feel is, that first kind of conversation you have with someone, when someone gets your name wrong, it can really feel quite rubbish. So that's something that we've put in place as well recently. Keep an eye on any updates that are coming, because there's all things that are happening to help you, have the best experience. So I'm going to move on now to your profile, your story, and this is, as most of you on the call will probably be within marketing, and so you're used to actually marketing for companies that you're working for. You might not be so great at marketing yourselves, often we aren't. So this is hopefully going to help you. The tip sheet that I've got on the screen now is something that you're going to be sent from us, so you don't need to worry about scribbling loads of notes. We will send this, the guys from Carter Murray are going to send this out to you. And this is just a really nice way to get your profile looking good. So what we say is, your photo, so many people keep their photo private and unless it's to their first and secondary connections. People buy from people. It's good to have a photo there. It's good to know that you're a real person. So I would definitely say, if you've got that private, put your photo on as public. And gone were the days when I first started, when I was in recruitment and I had my first LinkedIn profile. It was very stiff and starchy, collared shirt, and everyone had exactly the same look, and there was no smiling. It was as if I was going for a passport photo, I think. But as time's progressed, we put personality on our social media platforms, and actually people buy from people. So you really want to have some personality coming through your profile, and it starts with having just a really good, headshot photo. I'd probably lay off, having, a holiday shot or something with, loads of family and friends in the background. It's quite good to just have it of you. Your location is really important. Neil's going to talk a bit more about why that's important in a moment. Your summary, so your kind of summary, which goes, if you can see, underneath where it says connect, You've got a summary here. Now, rule of thumb, I say typically like 3 small paragraphs. The first one needs to grab someone's attention to show who you are and what you do. If you read mine, it starts off with the fact that I'm passionate about watching people transform and people change and people learn new skills and break through barriers. And that's what I've been passionate about since I started at LinkedIn, and I still am now, and that's what my job's all about. So that first paragraph really identifies that. The second paragraph, you need to get as many buzzwords in as possible. That's where you can kind of do a bit of a description of your experience and summarize your experience. It's not your CV, it's not your War and Peace. It's literally just a kind of list or an overview on what you're good at and what you do, because again, Neil will show you from a recruiter's perspective how they search on those, and as many buzzwords you get in there as possible will be good. When you go down, and sorry, the third paragraph is sometimes would be like a summary of your company or the work you're doing at the moment, maybe, or the type of businesses that you work with or work in. When you go through to your experience, this is where, you know, a lot of companies aren't even needing to see a full CV now. They often want to see your LinkedIn profile, and by seeing your LinkedIn profile, it's enough. But what you must make sure you're doing is, if you do need a CV, if you are still working with a CV and you're backing up, you know, the work that you've got on LinkedIn with your CV, you need to have it married up. You need to have it mirroring each other. So many people put stuff on LinkedIn and they haven't got it kind of the same on their CV. It might just be a couple of months out on the dates, which can then raise questions. So make sure that they marry up well, make sure they mirror each other. If you've got both, the way that you should look at it is your LinkedIn profile has got what's going to grab people's attention. It's your quick bullet points. It's, again, not War and Peace. It's your bullet points of your experience. And then really, really important, again, getting as many buzzwords on there as possible for recruiters to search on and for people to see what you can do. It's quite good as well to have any achievements on there. So if you've got a couple of things that you've worked on, projects where you've saved XYZ money, or you've done this, or you've implemented this, that's great to have on there as well, because it will grab people's attention. You don't need to put on the stuff that's obvious that you would do in your job. It's more about the stuff that kind of is you want to be known for in that job. And then you're going to go on to looking at, you know, pictures and videos. Everyone loves a video these days. That's where, you know, most people that are selling are using videos. And so get some, if there's any videos that you've been involved in or anything you can put on your profile, get something on there. You know, any work that stands out that you're allowed to share on there, you know, please do. And have something that's a bit more, you know, a bit more interactive. Endorsements and education, that's quite self-explanatory. There's a bit more information on the tip sheet for you. So moving on, we mustn't forget, so I mentioned location, it's really, really important. I live down in the New Forest in the south of England. If I was looking for a new job, I wouldn't put the New Forest on my location, because there's not going to be loads around here for the sort of work I do. I would want to work in London, so I'm going to put my location as London. And I think that's important, just to kind of, you know, keep a focus on what you want to do. There's more people looking now for remote work. We've updated something on our LinkedIn jobs so that recruiters can post jobs and they can put they're looking for remote workers. I think that's, again, something that's really really worth knowing. And a lot more jobs, there will be flexibility, especially now, but moving forward, hopefully the market is changing, so you will have more chance, hopefully, to work remote sometimes. Education, publications and accomplishments, I think they kind of speak for themselves, but I think that, and I know Neil's going to go into a bit more detail about that, so I'm not going to go into too much on this slide. But just, you know, make sure that if you've got things, that publications you've authored, or anything that shows your great work, just get it on there. So we're going to just spend another couple of minutes, and then I'm going to pass over to Neil, talking about building your thought leadership on LinkedIn. So are you familiar? So make sure you're familiar, with the publishing content on LinkedIn and sharing updates across the platform. Know the resources that you can point people to for additional information. So there is a LinkedIn Help Center. There's actually a link that I've got that I haven't shared with Cards Mary yet, but I'll share it after this call, and they can add that into the update to just help you find out, you know, where you can get resources from. You guys are all, or guys and girls are all marketeers or within that remit. So you should be pretty good at this, but actually we see a lot of people don't do it on themselves, as I said at the beginning. So sharing updates versus publishing posts. So updates are where you share links, articles, images, quotes, anything else that your followers may be interested in. Publishing is where you deeply explore topics that matter to you, then watch the comments and see your impact. So publishing is a bit more personal. Updates, other things that you can do every day quite quickly on LinkedIn. You need to be active on the platform. The more active you are on the platform, the more recruiters will see you. Now, within the recruiter license, which Neil will go into, there's a couple of things called spotlights that recruiters can use to find the right people quicker. The people that they can search on and kind of highlight in their searches, they might do a search for marketers within London and they might get 4,000 people. But then they might click on something called most likely to respond. The people most likely to respond are the people that we see as LinkedIn as the most active. It's an algorithm that works in the background. The people that are most active on the platform, the people that are doing things, you know, maybe emailing people, responding to emails, etc. They're the ones that are going to come up in that search. So you might see that the recruiters look at those first because they get a quicker response because you're more active. The other thing they can do is then click on open to new opportunities. So if you've got that switched on, then they can look at open to new opportunities. So all the updates, the things that you're doing on the platform are really, really important for a number of different reasons. The publishing on LinkedIn becomes part of your profile. It gets shared with your network and it reaches the largest group of professionals online. So it's a really good way to get you out there and to get people knowing what you're all about. So just to finish off, I'm going to touch on knowledge and insights. This is where you need to start looking at your profile as your hub. It reflects, as we said, your profile, your story. This is your hub, and this is where you're promoting yourself. So you want to follow the right companies. So first of all, we're going to, you might have been on LinkedIn years, and like me, probably followed a load of people years ago that actually have no interest to you anymore. So go and have a bit of a digital detox. Go and look at your page. Maybe get rid of some of the connections you've got. They might not be relevant to you anymore. And then maybe add new ones that are more relevant, and then maybe spend some time looking at your news feed, looking at who you follow, what companies. We're going to go on to what influencers as well, so you can follow people that inspire you, that might have information that you need or you want to know about, that will keep you updating your market. So make sure that have a bit of a digital detox, look at your following, who you're following, look at your connections, and look at your influencers, and get that right for you. And then the last thing that you need to do on that is optimize your feed. So see see the news, the content, the posts that matter most to you. So you can go in now, you can change some settings. You'll see here on the screen that you've got a bit of information around how you can do that, but you can basically go and hide posts that don't interest you, unfollow people. Obviously, if you see something that you don't agree with, then make sure that you can you report that if you think it shouldn't sit on the platform. And yeah, as a member, we give you full control over your LinkedIn feed. We want to empower you to consume the content that matters most. And we want you to manage your preferences. You click on the 3 little dots and you can manage your preferences. That will improve the quality of your feed. So I know I've kind of whizzed through everything there. I want to pass now over to Neil because I don't want to take any more of his time. But hopefully that would be helpful for you.
Thanks, Katie. That was really helpful. Really helpful. In fact, there's a couple of points that I think I probably need to update on my profile, having watched that. So, yeah, very good. Thank you. So I guess, as you guys can see, LinkedIn, as most of you know, it's an extremely powerful and useful tool. It's probably arguably the go-to tool that most recruiters go to when receiving a new brief. And I guess what we'd like to do now is effectively show you where we go. So this is the back end, if you like, of the LinkedIn database. So this is a product called LinkedIn Recruiter. So this is something that most agencies and internal recruiters will have access to, and is kind of how we drill down in terms of searches. So I'll go through this in much further details in terms of some of the more sort of pertinent areas, but it's really just to give you a bit of a view. And as we've said a couple of times as well, we'll be sending out some takeaways in terms of what's a few slides and some key takeaways from this. The left-hand side really is kind of the key term search functionality and what we're going to look for in terms of searches. And then on the right-hand side, it's just more opportunity to drill down much further. If we're getting very specific or niche roles on, we might want to be using those bits as well. So this is just first page and second page, which is just a continuation of that sort of initial where we go to portal piece. So as you can see, there's a whole range of information. I mean, one area I'd highlight actually is network relationships. So you might not think this way being a candidate, but again, I would say if there's good recruiters that you're working with, internal recruiters within certain businesses, for example, that you might want to get into, get connected to them. Because again, often what we will do is punch in first connections in there and have a quick skim through who we know, who we spoke to, who we've met for a coffee, etc. And they often will be the first person we target in terms of a new brief coming through. The other side of that is obviously if you're connected to them, if I start shouting about an opportunity on LinkedIn, it's going to come up in your feed. Or alternatively, if my colleague has a role on and I'm liking it or sharing it, again, it's going to start popping up. So definitely one recommendation, take out, obviously get connected to me and other recruiters in the market as well. The next slide is what we put together really, I guess, in terms of where we go to on that system. Sean, our marketing guy, was quite proud of the fact he came up with the name for this, the Magnificent Seven. But effectively, what it is, it's the key areas really in terms of where we're going. And what I will do is as I said, go through from a recruitment perspective in terms of some of these key areas. So I guess job title, I'll go through that in a further slide. Location, Katie mentioned. I think location is quite an interesting one. Again, the whole point of this webinar and in terms of LinkedIn generally is really to think strategically about what it says about you and make sure it's positioning you correctly for the types of opportunities you want. So location is very much around, this should be where you're working, not where you're living. So I work in London, but I live out in Surrey. So I've got my location as London. Because again, if I'm a recruiter, as I am, and I pump in, I want to find a marketeer in London, I'm putting London in there. The algorithm is clever enough to understand if I'm sitting in Surrey, I can make it to London. However, this whole point of this webinar is to almost navigate away from that and actually just ensure that you are putting the relevancy in terms of functionality. Skills, again, this is quite a key area which I'm going to go through in a slightly later slide. Companies, so not a lot you can do here. I guess you've either worked for the company or you haven't, you'd hope. But again, what I often see on LinkedIn platform is people not necessarily get rid of their previous company when they take a new role, as in put an end date in. So some candidates will have 2 or 3 companies it looks like they're still working at. So again, it's just a bit of a tidy process when you go through it, ensuring that everything's neat and tidy as it would be on your CV, or as it should be on your CV as well. The other side of that is when we do retained searches, which you do quite a bit here at Carter Murray, obviously a lot of that will be market mapping. So for example, we might be market mapping against competitors. So again, just making sure you've got the relevant companies and stuff like that. Often as well, people want sort of not put in a company they worked for previously, say 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I would say put it all in there because it could come up as a search function for a relevant search. Industries, now this is a bit of a gripe of mine and a lot of recruiters out there. Carter Murray, obviously, we're a specialist marketing digital communications agency. So we search for marketing digital and communications people. What a lot of candidates will do within industry is they put either marketing and advertising or public relations and communications within their industry. That's the skill set. The industry is the industry. So again, I'm a financial services recruiter and I've been for 9 years now. Chances are when I get a brief on, I'm putting financial services or insurance or banking within that search functionality. Now, again, if you're putting marketing and advertising in there and you happen to work at a bank, the algorithm will be clever enough to pick that up. But again, it's all about control. So it's how do you emphasize the industry you're in. And again, if you are moving industries and things like that, it might be a process of as and when you get a new role, just tidying up the profile again as you would a CV type thing. So I would say think about that one. Think about what industry you're actually in. If you're in financial services, make sure it says financial services, and therefore you'll start popping up in more relevant searches. Keywords, again, is a major one for us. So that's another area that we're going to go through in further detail. And then languages probably isn't really a Magnificent Seven. Sorry, Sean, it's probably 6 really, but languages are quite pertinent. Recently, we've had a couple of searches on across the business where clients have asked for specific language skills, German, French, etc. Now, language is quite an interesting one. We've done some searching, actually some searching this morning. There's almost 29 million people within the UK on LinkedIn, which you'd argue is pretty much the whole workforce. Of that, around 700,000 people speak French. Now, most of us learn French in school. You don't have to be fluent, but I would argue there's got to be more than 700,000 French speakers in the UK. I think there's about 300,000 French people that live in London. So a lot of people definitely don't put that in. Anecdotally, I spoke to a candidate last week. She spoke 4 languages fluent, and none of them were on her LinkedIn profile. So again, it's if I'm looking for a German-speaking whatever, and you speak German, get it in there because you're going to pop up in the search. We're actually going to have a little poll now, so we'll take sort of 10-15 seconds to run that. Yeah, if you guys can pump that in, hopefully it will conclude with what I've just spoken about. So there you go. So 53% of you speak a second language, 61% of it is not on your LinkedIn profile. It's not huge numbers, but again, there's 61% people there that aren't going to pop up in a search function. So again, that's one thing that I would get straight onto. The beauty of LinkedIn as well is it gives you different abilities in terms of language. So you don't have to be fluent. You could be basic. I think there's 3 or 4 different varying degrees of level on that. So definitely worth something adding on to. So I think the next slide, what I decided it would be a good idea would be to, as Katie did really, have a bit of a bird's eye view in terms of what a recruiter would look for on a LinkedIn slide. I was going to do it on active candidate, but I thought on the GDPR and everything else around that, I thought it'd be a good idea to go through Sean. So sorry, Sean, I'll try not to be too critical as we go through it. But all jokes aside, I think, in terms of Sean's, so what I'm looking at when I see Sean's slide is very much around, time at current company, a good tenure, it's got his job title. I think in terms of, there's different parts around that. First thing I'd say as well, obviously there's a good clear photo there, which is important. Again, you'd be amazed. I mean, obviously as recruiters, we see thousands and thousands of profiles, and you'd be amazed at some of the photos on there that, just straight away as a shop window opportunity, it's kind of not necessarily engaging or appealing. So again, photo, things like that. And absolutely, there's a couple of schools of thoughts in terms of bringing that personality in there, or it being a bit more corporate. But I think as long as it's clear and engaging, that's probably the main thing. Obviously, in terms of Sean, I can see CIM. So for me, that's a massive tick straight away. And I can see that there's plenty of mutual connections, mutual groups. So again, it's just building a bit of a picture that, this guy's a good solid marketeer. I then look through sort of, next slide, we can see time at company, some good tenure, job title. I guess this is, again, going back to sort of the Magnificent Seven, job title is really important. I think, obviously, you've got to get it right. I'd say between LinkedIn and CV, LinkedIn, clearly, there's a bit more of a potential, let's say, to be creative. However, I think it's really important not to oversell or undersell yourself, particularly around the job title. So, for example, if you're a head of marketing, but you don't actually have a team and it's a standalone role, you might want to put head of marketing there, but in the content underneath, you might want to say standalone role. So that, for example, if I've got a senior manager role on, which is still a nice opportunity for someone who's maybe a head of a smaller business, and the senior manager role that I've got on is maybe, managing 3 or 4 people, initially I might be put off by a head of marketing, because I think they've got a team of 10, but actually within the content, I can see it's a standalone role. So actually the opportunity I've got is a step up, and I'll contact that candidate. Vice versa, if that person's a marketing manager, but leading a team of 5 or 6, and I've got a head of marketing role on, leading a team of 3 or 4, again, it might be a step up. So I'll contact that person. So again, just be strategic around that and think about how that kind of influence things. I think a lot of people naturally oversell themselves on LinkedIn, but that could deter you from popping up in searches, or as I said, detract recruiters from contacting you. I think also within the content under the job, obviously it's a great opportunity to get some generalist skills in there. So think again what we look for when we get briefs on what are the key terms that recruiters contact you and talk to you about, leadership, budget management, people management, stakeholder management. It's all the usual stuff that's in every single job title, job description. So, I would say get that in there, get that in the content. I've got great stakeholder management ability, give a bit of an insight into that. I manage a budget, for example, because these are the bits where the keyword search and the algorithm is going to pick up on. So you're going to be coming at the top of that search. I think in terms of the algorithm, given most of the audience is marketing, digital and communications professionals, I would think of it as a bit of a Google algorithm. How do you get your company at the top of Google? You play around with it and you use search to, PPC and SEO and whatnot. Think of it in that sort of strategic level. And I think in terms of your profile, it'll start to come through. Again, within that function, you might want to be more specific in incorporating some marketing terminology. So, and really sort of the beauty of that is it will be picked up. So, B2B, B2C, B2B2C might be worth putting in as a marketer. Again, these are sometimes functions that we might look on, or extensions of this. If you're in asset management, for example, you might want to put intermediary, wholesale, institutional. There's certainly things that we look for in that space. I think in terms of FMCG, it might be more around brand, channel, technology, ABM, whatever it is that's relevant and pertinent to you and your industry. Get that sort of terminology and those words in there, because they're going to then be picked up on the keywords, as I said, and you'll start to pop up in the top of the search function. I think the other area on that as well is things like geographical. So if you've got UK exposure, EMEA, global, etc., opportunities to get that in. Might be in your job title, it might not be. So again, just think strategically, is that in there? And the other area really is obviously the recent trend for clients who are looking for software and platform experience. So anything from around sort of MarTech, your Eloquas, your Marketos, your Pardos or Pardots, however it says, any of that sort of thing, get that in there. Yes, we go to skills later on, and that will be, you can put it in there as well, but there's really no harm in duplication. In fact, knowing how most algorithms work, if you start to duplicate, there's probably more chance of you starting to pop on. So again, if I'm looking through Sean's profile here, I think, he's got a great list of skills and endorsements, which is really, really good. I think, having said that, if I was going to be critical, Sean's currently a brand manager, and yet he hasn't got brand management as a skill within his profile. So again, if I'm looking for a brand manager, yes, the algorithm may well look that up in terms of the job title, but again, put it in your key skills, because I might put brand management into a key skills search and not job title. So again, anything like that. The other sort of beauty really around sort of what we're doing in terms of the ownership that you have of your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profile shouldn't necessarily be a copy and paste of your CV. Your CV is your career. It's a written overview of your life's work. Your LinkedIn really is more of a shop window. Yes, if there's stuff in your CV, get it in your LinkedIn. But, LinkedIn, you can sort of push the agenda if you want to move slightly different tacks. So, for example, let's say Sean is a brand manager currently, obviously at Carter Marine SR Group, but he wants to move away from that, God forbid. But if he does, and wants to really build out a degree in a role in brand management, he could really sort of try to work through that. So, it's an opportunity for him to start to highlight his passion and his ability in that space. He might want to start to talk about some of the endorsements, get endorsements specifically around brand marketing and his passion for that space. He might want to get some recommendations. He might want to play around his skills. So he just starts to build up a bit more of a picture of being a great brand manager rather than necessarily a recruitment marketing person. But again, he wants to stay in marketing recruitment, wants to head into more of a head of or something like that. It's just the ability that you have as a candidate on LinkedIn to really control that agenda. Again, recommendations, I would say in terms of recommendations, it's clearly very much a bit of a name drop exercise, which is great. And clearly, when we are name dropping, I would say, go as high as possible. It might be, you might need to get the flowers and the wine and the chocolates out, but, getting some CEOs, getting some CMOs, whatever on there is just going to add so much weight to your profile. Having said that, I think it's also important to get some 360 ones as well. Again, you can play around strategically with this. I would say recommendations, I would say 6 to 10 is a good number. Be interested to get Katie's thoughts on that from a sort of analytical point of view, but I see people that have got 20 or 30 recommendations. That can be a bit off-putting. 1 or 2 can be a little bit off-putting. So I think just a good number on there. I would say aim as high as possible. Alternatively, if you're a CMO, you might want to go the other way. So, for example, again, you can be quite strategic in this. So, if you're a junior candidate You might want to get some terminology within your recommendations around how you're keen to learn and develop. Alternatively, if you're a head of or a senior marketer, you might want to put things in around, or get someone to write things around leadership, growth, turnaround qualities. At the end of the day, you control it. You know, you ask for the recommendation comes back to you asking if you want to publish it. So there is quite a bit of control there, and it's just an opportunity, as I said, to really sort of show off a little bit. I think accomplishments as well, you know, Sean's got some really good, strong accomplishments on that, and that's great. I think that, you know, again, right terminology, looks nice and tidy, it's very appealing. I think obviously most of us are British, and we're not necessarily great at selling ourselves, but it's really an important part to really sort of celebrate your achievements. So anything that you've got in there that's going to be relevant and pertinent to your next dream role, absolutely get in there. And again, interests, again, think strategically, as Katie was talking about, you know, it's the types of groups, the companies, the causes, anything that you want to highlight around there that's going to be really building a picture of what you're doing now, but also where you want to be longer term type stuff. I think the other thing that Sean could have put in there, you can have a portfolio of work, and again, that can be video or PDFs, etc., which can really bring things to life. And again, it's just another opportunity for you to really sort of bring your achievements to life in that space. A little bit of a plug here around that sort of space. Sorry, just to go through. We at Carlton Murray have a Carlton Murray volunteer network. So it's a partnership with a charity called Reach. It's all on our website, etc. And again, what we'll be doing is sending out some information on that as part of the takeaway piece that we send out. But Reach is, you know, it's the UK's leading skills-based volunteering charity. It's very much around trusteeship and pro bono opportunities, and we've got a portal on there. But again, you know, if that's something you're interested in, you can get that in, signed up, and then obviously you can add that to your LinkedIn profile, and it might be, again, quite pertinent to your next opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of it now in terms of that. We'll obviously start to go through some Q&As that you guys have come through, but hopefully you found it all very useful. Katie, do you want to start going through some of the Q&As?
Yes, of course. I know we're over time a little bit, so I know people might have dropped off, but I'm happy to stay on and answer some of these questions if people find them helpful. If that's good. Yeah, okay, so I've got the questions here. So the first question is, what if there is a recruiter at your company and you select open to work privately? I should have said that at the beginning. Your company can't search with their recruiter licenses on their own employees. So that's where there's a privacy thing in place. If the majority of companies, depending how you're set up as a business, but the majority of companies, if you're under a group, so say, for example, LinkedIn are part of Microsoft is connected to LinkedIn on LinkedIn. If people at Microsoft had recruiter licenses, they couldn't see if I've got my recruiter license switched on, but it does depend how your business is set up. So typically your own company, you're definitely protected from. Further group it's individual basis, but yeah, you're private, so that's fine. If you add university, it only lets you add this with dates. And yes, someone's mentioned here that concerns them about age. Unfortunately, yeah, the dates you do need to add in, so there isn't any way around that comes up with dates, because it gives you an idea on your profile of what you're, you know, when you're at university, etc. You might have studied later, you know, you might have done the course later on. It just gives you an idea of kind of the pattern, and it kind of mirrors your profile. So another question, some recruitment experts recommend about slimming down the CV to only one page and then using LinkedIn as a complement and have lots of information on LinkedIn. That obviously makes descriptions very long. What would you recommend? I mean, from a LinkedIn perspective, I mirror what me and Neil have said already. I think your CV is, you know, your CV, it kind of gives you a good idea. I do think that sometimes CVs are way too long. And when I was a recruiter, I'd get 5-6 pages, and I never used to look at the 5 and 6 pages. So I do think you need to be quite concise. Your CV, as well as your LinkedIn profile, is really a start of a conversation. LinkedIn profile, you know, everything is searchable, so the relevant information that you want people to see should be on there. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that now, Neil. I think it's you know, both of the CV and the LinkedIn profile should be quite nice.
Yeah,
Really, not.
absolutely. I think from my perspective, I mean, the idea of a one-page CV is no. I mean, you hear so many stories out there. Personally, I quite like 2 to 3 pages. I think you're right. When you
Yeah.
start to get into sort of 6 pages, it gets a bit long. But in terms of, it's also so subjective because it depends where you are in your career. I mean, obviously, if you're a junior candidate, it might be a nice, neat one-pager. If you're, you know, a CMO, trying to get everything you've ever done in 20 years experience onto a one page is just not going to work. So I'm not a massive believer in length of CV that important. It's more about the content and the quality of the CV.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, 2 more quick questions, or 3 more. Oh, there's a few more actually. We'll answer a couple and then so the bit about the descriptive headline or to simply have your current job title, LinkedIn's recommendation is that you have your job title in your job. And that's where recruiters will search on job titles. That's reflected in your job. That's the field that marries up for recruiters to search on. Your headline underneath your photo should be a description, and it should be something that describes what you do. That's how it was designed, and that's how the platform and the algorithm works. That bit isn't searchable. That's just for you to kind of show a headline of what you do.
And actually, that's one of the key areas that I've got to change on my profile. So it's been really useful from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I think it just gives, if you look at mine, it's just a description of what you do. It just kind of stands you out from everybody else. So good question. And I'll just do one more maybe, and then we're maybe taking note of any that we haven't answered. I'm just really aware of people's time. So I think we've answered that one. Oh, actually, this might be quite a good one. Hold on. Sorry, I've got 2 screens going here. That's why I'm looking away from you all. I think we've talked about LinkedIn profiles. How widely is the green open to work profile used? It's brand new, so it's just ramping up. So I can't answer that at the moment, but yeah, that's a good question, but it is a brand new feature. And
I think on that, Katie, someone's just asked about that they're open to opportunities but don't have the logo. And I think you were saying yesterday you've got to go back in and edit it. Is that correct?
You've got to go back into your settings, and that's on the tip sheet that we're sending out. It's on the blog post of exactly how to do it, because you've got it set up for recruiters to see, but now there's this new feature, so you need to just go in and update so that if you want both to see. Yeah. I think we'll leave it there for questions, because otherwise we might totally bore everybody and they switch off from us. But there's been some really good questions and really good engagement, and thank you so much for letting me join this session with you guys. Hopefully everyone's found that helpful, and I'll let you wrap up, Neil.
That's great. Thank you, Katie. It's absolutely, as I said, I found it very interesting, so hopefully everyone did too. Absolutely keep firing your questions in, and as we said, we'll get a bit of a takeaway emails back out to everyone in terms of some of the areas we've covered. And again, if you've got any relevant questions, do reach out, and we can go through it from there. But really good fun for Thursday morning. Hope everyone's enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.